Welcome to the Rove Report. I'm your host, British Matt. The world is our show, and we bring you the latest and greatest updates and travel news across the country and across the Atlantic. Each week, we will try and bring you the most relevant topics on restrictions and recommendations so that you can plan better, travel better, and live better. We are all living through unprecedented times right now, and we felt it important to make sure you have a place to come where you can find out positive news on updates and changes that benefit your life. The state of Hawaii has updated their ruling to allow a negative COVID-19 test result to help you bypass the mandatory 14-day quarantine. This loosening of a restriction starts October the 15th. The test must have been completed 72 hours prior to your departure. The key thing to know here, especially if you have a multi-city itinerary, is that the 72-hour timestamp is the departure time at the last city that you were in before arriving in Hawaii. You can upload your test results to your Safe Travels account, which is what you will have started in order to take the Safe Travels application, which is necessary before travel. That restriction remains the same. You will want to answer all the questions on the health questionnaire 24 hours prior to your departure. For those looking to travel to Italy anytime soon, there is a glimmer of hope for the adventurous and the courageous. It does include sufficient time in an approved country though, where you will have to have been for 14 days. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs have launched an online tool called COVID-19 Survey, which we'll include in the show notes. This helps each traveler determine their own entry into the country. You will answer a list of questions regarding your recent whereabouts, and it will provide you the relevant requirements and rules based on your own situation. This ruling applies to everyone, not only Americans. The biggest thing to note here is that American travelers also face travel bans in some of the approved countries that Italy have listed, places like France, Austria, and Spain. So you'll have to check closely and plan well in advance. Currently, there are 4 countries out of a list of 30 that Italy is allowing Americans to enter from. Those include Croatia, Slovenia, Ireland, and the United Kingdom. All 4 of those countries require some form of quarantine or negative test result, so again, please plan in advance. The Dominican Republic recently reported a very low number of cases from trailing data for the bulk of September. Of over 1,800 cases, only 2 tested positive from all tests carried out on passengers arriving at the airport. A lot of the playbook being used by the Dominican Republic is a direct result of seeing some of the success of tourism in Mexico, where in Cancun entry requirements were dropped. What the Dominican Republic is doing, which is arguably more impressive from a convenience standpoint, is offering all travelers free medical insurance that covers all tourists for COVID-19. Their travel assistance plan covers up to $10,000 in expenses related to contracted COVID-19 and is 100% paid for by the Dominican government. With the high season quickly approaching, the authorities are making sure they do whatever possible to help attract more tourists from the US and Canada, with millions choosing southern destinations every winter to escape the cold. As we talked about last week, there are 2 new countries that have opened up to Americans. For those looking to travel to Guatemala and what seems to be a standard protocol for today's post-pandemic travel, you will face needing a negative test result or will have a 14-day quarantine. Once you are there, all travelers must follow the health protocols outside, which is social distancing within 5 feet, wearing a face mask in all public spaces, and note that non-compliance with these measures could result in hefty fines. It is also important to note that there is a current curfew which goes into effect at 9 p.m. each night, and no alcohol can be purchased after 7 p.m. So please plan accordingly and know that the days are going to present likely more activity than the nights. Colombia initiated their first phase of international flights last week and are requiring a negative COVID-19 test 96 hours prior to your departure. The first 2 airports that will be hosting flights will be Fort Lauderdale and Miami. For any passengers that fulfill the PCR testing requirement, no mandatory quarantine will be required. It will be mandatory, however, for all passengers to fill out the pre-registration form Check MIG on Colombia's migration portal between 1 and 24 hours prior to flight departure. The form is being enforced to help pre-screen arrivals and assist in speeding up customs at the airport. The hope by officials is with a push for safer tourism during the fall-winter period that Canadians and American travelers do consider Colombia over the more expensive Caribbean islands. And that's all we have for this episode, but remember to check in each week for the latest updates in restrictions and recommendations. Thank you for your earbuds, and make sure to subscribe so you get notified of the next episode where we bring you updates to help you plan better, travel better, and live better. It's no question that COVID-19 has changed all of our lives, but what's important is that we have an optimistic outlook on the future in travel and tourism and still live our lives every day to the best of our abilities. We have no doubts that COVID-19 has made travel a lot more complicated, but we can assure you that tourism boards all around the world are doing their very best to ensure your safety and security and also give you a platform to travel once again. As your British host living in North America, operating an informative media company all around the world, be sure to stay healthy and happy, and we'll see you next week.